The T-Wolves fall short today versus the Clippers, 89-88. I got our expert, Jack Borman. He's going to help us break it all down, and it's all coming up next on the Locked On Wolves POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man, Jack Borman, on Twitter, at JRBorman13. And Jack, before we jump into all the action, quick reminder, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 if your $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Okay, brother. Wolves coming off that tough overtime loss versus the Kings Friday night. They're hosting the Clippers, who, just breathing down their neck. They're trying to claw their way atop this tough Western Conference. And Wolves get off to this fast, red-hot start. They got up, 14-0 to start this one. Target Center on your feet. That place was rocking. Cat led the way early on. But then everything just kind of cooled off slowly but surely. I mean, Cat started to get double-teamed. Ant did what he could when he could. But for the most part, you're kind of just waiting for someone else to step up and help out and take over. Mike Conley, 0 points on just 4 shots. Naz Reid, 0 for 7 shooting, huh? Jaden McDaniels coming off those 2 great games, by the way, offensively anyways. He went just 3 for 9, 6 points. So it was like after the first quarter, this one really kind of turned into like a Kawhi Leonard versus Anthony Edwards type of game. And then the big X factor for me anyways, I mean, the Clippers had Norman Powell, who anytime had just a sliver of room, he was knocking down shots, 6 of 8 from 3, 24 points off the bench. This one came down to the final possession, though. In the end, Wolves lose another tough one, 89-88. Their lead in the West shrinks once again. A lot to dissect, I know, Jack, but just kick us off here to get going. Your biggest takeaways from this one.
Yeah, this was a capital G gross basketball game. I mean, these two teams have played in some pretty tight ones that have been, have had stretches of really strong defense, really bad offense, however you want to look at it. And then in this one, I mean, both teams sub 100 offensive rating. I don't know that has happened in an NBA game so far this season. The second lowest offensive rating of the season for the Timberwolves, 97.8. The lowest was actually the first game of the season against the Toronto Raptors. But yeah, both of these teams had one quarter where they showed some really solid offense, where they scored more than 30 points, and then in the other 3 quarters, the teams didn't have a quarter scoring more than 22 points. Just neither team could really find an offensive rhythm. Sub 40% shooting for both teams, sub 30% 3-point shooting for both teams. It honestly just kind of came down to one of those games where you needed your stars to come through and just kind of give you, 1 or 2 enough shots to get 1 or 2 shots to go down. And the Clippers got that from Kawhi. Kawhi scored 8 points in the fourth quarter to give him 32 for the game. And Anthony Edwards, after a really strong second and third quarter, just only 2 points in that fourth quarter. And Karl Anthony Towns as well couldn't find it in that fourth quarter as well. I think, the biggest takeaway for me in this game is just the way that Karl Anthony Towns got clamped up, right? The Clippers put out the blueprint for how to shut down Karl Anthony Towns, right? They let him get loose for a couple of 3-pointers in that first quarter. And then after that, they really crowded him on the catch, forced him to put the ball on the deck. And then they showed him a crowd in the paint. And Karl just really struggled to impact the game as a scorer after that. He scored 12 points on 5 of 5 shooting in that first quarter, then proceeded to miss his next 10 shots of the game. He scored 6 points on 2 of 13 shooting after that. And he was scoreless in the second quarter and the third quarter. And you just can't have that from somebody as talented as Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, he did impact the game a little bit as a passer. He had 8 assists. I believe that is a season high for Karl. And had 3 turnovers and only had 3 turnovers. You'd still like him to be in that 1 to 2 range, but he just played into the Clippers' hands way too much. I mean, Jim Pete said it a couple times on the broadcast where you just like to see Karl stay spaced out and take a sidestep 3 or or do a little give and go once the guy flies by in a contest, pass it to Mike Conley or Anthony Edwards, and then get the ball right back. We see guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Shane McDaniels, Mike Conley even does that all the time to create more open 3-point looks. And, the Wolves just weren't able to do that for Carl, or Carl wasn't able to do that for himself, I guess. And, and the Timberwolves just didn't help themselves. They couldn't get out and run in transition at all. They lost 19-0 in transition for the second game in a row.
Yeah, brutal. Wow. What's up with that? Yeah.
19-0 on Friday night. And so, you just really need to see the Timberwolves have more sense of urgency offensively when they get a stop to really get out and run. And they just played right into the Clippers' hands. Clippers have an elite half-court defense, a bunch of guys, a bunch of length. They can switch, can defend in space. And when you're not running, you're not able to get cross matches, find any mismatches, and take advantage of those mismatches. It's just going to be really tough to score against them. The Timberwolves, I thought, did a good job for the most part of trying to spread the Clippers out in that first half. They ran a lot of spread pick and roll, and Anthony Edwards was fantastic, throwing skip passes to the corners. But again, Timberwolves just didn't create enough of those shots and didn't make enough of those shots, right? On corner 3-point shots tonight, the Timberwolves were 5 of 13, 38.5% might look good on the surface, but for a team with as much corner 3-point shooting talent as the Timberwolves have, you'd like to see them, shoot closer to 45%. So make 6 or 7 of those 3-point looks. And when you think about the way that the Timberwolves were able to create 3-point looks, I'd venture to guess that more than half of those came in the first 15 minutes of the game, and they just completely went away from that spread pick and roll. And again, let Karl Anthony Towns just kind of suck the energy out of the offense with all this driving into a crowd. And they took a lot of shots really late in the shot clock too, which is something that doesn't necessarily bode well for the Timberwolves when that ends up happening.
Walk me through the ending just real quick. It gave me that feeling like you're walking out of the movie theater after watching like a weird, terrible M. Night Shyamalan type of ending, right? The Village. Okay. I don't want to name. Lady in the Water, whatever. I feel like I've seen them do this before, though. You're down 3, time's running out. Obviously, they're going to give you the free 2. Ant takes the free 2 points. Now there's only 3 seconds left, though. They can't get the foul. Boom. Cut, smash. Roll the credits, game's over. Like, easy to say in hindsight, I know, and this is why I bring it up. I want to ask you okay with that type of, mindset and game plan, or does that drive you nuts regardless of the outcome?
No, I actually didn't have a problem with what Ant did. Karl, to his credit, didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. And
so they just got a foul. That's
I think that right? you've just got to make more of an effort defensively to get a foul in. I was fine with it because the Timberwolves still had a timeout. You could most times in that situation, you're able to get a foul with less than a second running off the clock. I think you just got to tip your cap to Amir Coffey, right? Made a really heads-up play. They were playing off of James Harden. I believe James Harden was the inbounder on that play, and then just came and got it back. And the Clippers, basketball IQ just kind of showed there right at the end of the game. But again, I had zero problem with what Ant did. Wide open lane, still had like 4 seconds left on the shot clock. Wolves still had a timeout. They weren't going to find anything otherwise. You didn't want to throw up a scud. We've seen the Wolves have to do that more than a few times this season. We saw it on Friday night that the last play of the game there was a complete cluster on the left side of the floor, had 4 guys in one spot. I honestly think that if you want to point a finger, I guess, just Chris Finch not being able to draw something up to get a good look for the second consecutive game at the end of regulation.
That's fair.
He normally is pretty good at that stuff, and whether that was the players not running what he drew up or whatever he drew up just not working, I think that just really unfortunate execution at the end of a game. And if you want to point to I guess a note of pessimism for the Wolves as it pertains to more high leverage basketball that we'll see over the next month to 6 weeks, is you look at a team like Denver in the fourth quarter last night in clutch time. They just totally put the pedal to the floor and absolutely destroyed the Lakers in the fourth quarter. Ran a ton of set offense through Nikola Jokic and absolutely dominated them with super efficient offense. And the Timberwolves yet again just continue to struggle in clutch time. I thought that they ran a lot more set offense down the stretch of this one, found some easy buckets, but again, it's just inconsistent, right? And too much of what we saw in the early part of the fourth quarter has defined the majority of the fourth quarter, and that it's just a lot of playing against a set offense, not getting into sets early enough, not running anything. A lot of guys just looking around, standing around, looking for each other to do something, and not enough quality looks, and ultimately not enough of the other team taking the ball out of the net.
Let's close this first segment out with some sort of positive. I guess if we're looking and scratching and clawing for some sort of positives, probably comes on, the defensive side of the ball. That was obviously, again, pretty dang rock solid again today. Anytime you hold an offense with so much talent to 89 points, that says something. You mentioned it. Both teams' shooting efficiency, absolute garbage. Clippers, though, 37% from the floor and just 29% from three. Any positives we can take away from the defense today, or in any, another phase of the game, I guess, that you saw?
Yeah, I was really pleased with Anthony Edwards' defense on Paul George.
Yeah.
So when it comes to trying to defend the Clippers, if I was drawing up a game plan, taking away Paul George would be the first place that I go, just because you look at what Paul George's numbers are in losses compared to wins. Is much different than Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is one of the most consistent guys in the league. And Paul George, fluctuates a lot more. And so if you can take Paul George away, force James Harden to be more of a scorer, force Norman Powell to be more of a scorer, I think that's going to generally work out pretty well for you. I mean, the Timberwolves in the first game of the year held Paul George to 16 points on 5 of 19 shooting. Second game of the year, 18 points on 5 of 16 shooting. And then tonight he had 15 points on 5 of 16 shooting. So really, really good job taking Paul George out of the game. I think that bodes well for a potential second round playoff matchup, if that ends up being the case between these two teams. And Anthony Edwards has certainly got the better of Paul George in that matchup defensively. So, and then on James Harden as well, right? 4 points, 0 of 10 shooting, 10 assists though. Did impact this one as a playmaker. I think too, the other thing, Mike Conley didn't get played off the floor in this one on these two teams last matchup. James Harden did a really good job of using his physicality against Mike Conley, kind of in the paint, just bullying him down there and shooting these little floaters over the top of Rudy Gobert that went in, is how he got most of his offense. But Mike held his own and really kind of forced Harden to just be more of a passive playmaker in this game. He took 10 shots. A lot of them were just, these little catch and shoot opportunities. He was 0 of 6 from 3. So, and a lot of them were tough shots. Got to be pleased with the Wolves backcourt and their defensive assignments and how they played.
Quick box score scouting doesn't always tell the whole story, I know, but something to go off of. Rudy, 12 straight double-double, 12 points, 16 boards. Towns with 18. Imagine what that looks like if he does anything in the second or third quarter. Slow-Mo and Now both with 8 off the bench. That was kind of nice. Morris with 6. But Jaden, Conley, Naz Reid, combined 9 total points. Take that any direction you want before we close up this first segment. Which guy deserves a little bit more attention tonight, for good or bad?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Naz Reid, right? 22, 19, and 18 in his last 3 games. Just 3 points on 0 of 7 shooting tonight. Again, did a great job as a rebounder, had 11 rebounds. He's continued to be really strong on the glass for the Timberwolves of late, which is something that they've really needed, especially with Kyle Anderson being out. But man, the Wolves would have really benefited from any type of offense, right? Only 25 bench points from them tonight. That's been a far cry from the 35 or so that they've averaged since Monte Morris has come to Minnesota. And it's been a huge improvement from them. I think they've jumped from like 24th in bench scoring up to 14th since Monte Morris got here. So
that's great.
Not necessarily because of Morris, but just with the way that the ball has moved better. Their assist to turnover ratio has been better as a bench group since Morris came in, and they've just found easier offense kind of in the flow, if you will. But again, I mean, everyone else scored pretty well off the bench. You got eight apiece from Alexander Walker and Kyle Anderson. You had 6 from Monte Morris, had a couple of huge threes there in the fourth quarter to, try to, help build a little bit of a lead for the Wolves. And then again, if Naz gives you even 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 points, you're walking away.
That's it.
Thinking, thank God we got to win. No pictures on the scorecard type of win. But
right.
Yeah, and again, like you said, Mike Conley didn't give you any points either, which is pretty rare for Mike, and Jaden McDaniels only 6 points.
It's rare
pretty
for one
loud
of those
points,
guys
but
not to give you points, let alone both of the same night, the same game. That's like
yeah,
unheard of, man.
and
You won't see that again all year.
Right. And I think you just got to, look at Nas too, right? Because Nas is paid to score the basketball, right? Like Mike Conley is not necessarily paid to score the basketball, and neither is Jaden.
Right.
But yeah, man, any of those three, you want to, ask for more scoring. I think you certainly could have. Just a bummer that all three of them had a tough night on the same night.
Well said. Plenty more deep dive included on Monte Morris Watch. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, check this out. New customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets when you win any $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets when you throw down just $5 on any bet. Right now, Wolves are 6.5 to 1 to win the NBA Finals. And the early line Monday is Wolves over the Blazers by 14.5. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on all the action. The app, so easy to use, and they got everything you need. Money lines, parlays, prop bets, over-unders, you name it, they got it. FanDuel's got everything you need to bet on the entire NBA season, and it's by far the easiest and simplest betting app to use. Go check it out for yourself. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon today. America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, official partner of the NBA. You and I didn't get to talk after that Kings overtime loss. Just wondering, just super quick feedback you had from that one. Obviously, no Ant in the second half overtime, but as a lot of people pointed out in the stream, Kings didn't have De'Aaron Fox either. So Wolves just kind of run out of gas at the end of that one. Or also, too, circle it this way too. Any similarities, I guess, between these two losses in back-to-back games?
Right. I think you got to point to the transition, right?
Yeah, again,
19-0 in both games.
Yes.
Probably two of the worst performances they've had there. Turnovers were a problem in both games, and their offensive rebounding too. I mean, you look at this one, right? The Timberwolves, I believe they had 12 offensive rebounds for 13 second chance points, but that doesn't really matter when, the Clippers have 7 offensive rebounds for 14 second chance points. They outscore them. On the second chances, despite having less offensive rebounds, right? So, for the Wolves, it's just those giveaway points, right? The points off turnovers, the transition points, and the second chance points. You add all those up, it's been really problematic for the Timberwolves in these two games, and then also too just an inability to shoot the three, right? You want to look at that. That last game versus the Kings, what did they shoot from three? They shot 12 of 31. Only 12 makes is not great for the Timberwolves, and then only 9 makes from three tonight. Yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate that, on nights when you're just kind of unable to conjure up enough offense to win a game, that your defense really puts you in a good position to win is just frustrating. It's been the same thing for the Timberwolves all year long. Obviously missing Anthony Edwards in the second half was tough. You could just tell in the fourth quarter and overtime that, the Wolves were just kind of looking around, waiting for Ant to make a play, and he wasn't there to be able to do it. Right. And not having Kyle Anderson, I think was tough. The Kings were able to use their size a little bit and make it difficult. And then in overtime, especially, kind of a similar theme to tonight, right? That the Kings went small after Sabonis fouled out.
Yeah.
And they were able to defend pretty well. I think that the Wolves missed their last 6 shots, and they were able to switch pretty well with Trey Lyles in there at the 5, and Karl Anthony Towns wasn't able to take advantage. And same deal tonight, right? Karl Anthony Towns had a small on him, whether it was James Harden or Terrence Mann, and just wasn't able to take advantage of it. So, and then, that point about the buzzer beaters, right? I think you had a buzzer beater or 2 from Harrison Barnes in that last game, and now you have Norman Powell.
Hey, get these out of the way now before we get down to the crunch time at the end of the, you know what I'm saying? Get them out of the way now.
Yeah. Definitely 2 games where I think you want to burn the offensive tape, though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, too? Even with the loss, I mean, bottom line, we always come in here and we dissect each and every game one by one. The Timberwolves are, quick math, 23 games over 500. So, I mean, I'll just be blunt, point blank. How close to a championship level team are the Timberwolves as of right now?
Man, as of right now,
Yeah.
I would say not close. It's pretty hard to win a championship when you continually struggle to score the ball in clutch time. I think, that's been a common theme. I think for the Wolves, it's just, they've done a pretty decent job this season of making sure that games don't get to clutch time, right? They've been able to run up the score in the third quarter enough times where, other teams have just kind of run out of time, like we saw in that Spurs game, this past week, right? And yeah, I mean, an elite defense is awesome, but guess what? Elite offenses tend to beat elite defenses more often than not in the playoffs, and it's really hard to just rely on an awesome defense in the playoffs. But hey, Anthony Edwards is certainly capable of being the number one guy. We saw how incredible he was 2 years ago against the Grizzlies, last year against the Nuggets. That certainly bodes well. And when you have a guy like that can just kind of get hot and take over a game, that can really wipe away some of your offensive issues. And the good news for the Timberwolves is they're as deep as any team in the Western Conference in terms of having 9 really, really solid rotation players that you feel good about playing in a playoff series. I don't think they'll have to shrink that down to 8. I think that they'll be able to, to keep that 9-man rotation and, and be able to kind of see what happens. But yeah, I just think that the really unfortunate reality is that they don't really have a good answer for punishing teams that go small against them with Karl Anthony Towns. He just hasn't been able to really take advantage of teams putting smaller, whether it be 2s, 3s, 4s on him. He really has a tough time with driving and picking up offensive fouls or driving into crowds. I think that's the biggest thing offensively for this team is whether it's Edwards, Towns, Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels, all those guys struggle with consistently driving into crowds and turning it over on the drive. And so I think the better the Timberwolves can take care of the ball on the drive and create more, kick out 3-point opportunities instead of drives to the rim, I think the better off they'll be. But it's really tough. The good news, though, is that a lot of teams in the Western Conference have been pretty inconsistent this year for as deep and as loaded as the Western Conference is. Yeah, we've seen a lot of teams struggle. I mean, even look at Phoenix, right? Phoenix has been one of the worst clutch time offenses in the NBA, and they have Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker.
It's crazy. So it's crazy.
There's a lot of things that I guess other teams struggle with that the Timberwolves can take advantage of, no question about it. But until they're able to get this offense figured out and more effectively call plays and figure out what works for them that they can rely on down the stretch and develop some sort of offensive identity in terms of clutch time play, I just am pretty bearish on the Timberwolves' ability to get past the second round.
I think that's fair, and I don't think you're really being a prisoner of the moment right now either. I will say that. I know you. I know all the way back to your preseason predictions and everything else. So in your eyes, Jack Borman's power rankings, are they the third best team in the league, the fifth, the seventh, the ninth? Where are they right now? Just, you don't need to go one by one, but about.
I don't know. I think just kind of focusing more on the Western Conference.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. You'd probably have to put them in that 3 to 4 range right now. I think in terms of, confidence level in the playoffs, right? I think Denver is certainly a better team than they are right now. I think that the way that Phoenix is hopefully going to continue to trend in terms of some of their guys getting healthier. They've looked pretty good since that Royce O'Neal move. He's really helped them play more small ball lineups that have been effective. I know that they got 3 guys that get injured, right, or that just got injured, but before that, again, a team that I think that the Timberwolves would not want to play in the in the second round of the playoffs. And then after that, I think, you could put the Timberwolves third, you could put the Thunder third, you could put the Wolves fourth after the Thunder, you could put the Thunder fourth after it's just kind
pretty interchangeable on a night to night, week to week basis.
Yeah. And a lot of teams just have really struggled with consistency from night to night. And,
this thing might come down to who gets hot at the end, just like a lot of NFL playoffs and everything else. Kind of cliche. I get it. Usually it does. But like, again, you're right. The big four at the top here, all about just kind of, they look like the number one team for a couple weeks and then they drop off a little bit. They've all kind of had their moment in the sun, so to speak. But you're right, man. I remember a month ago I asked you who's the best team in the West. You said the Clippers, hands down. And right now, I mean, that looks like the case for sure. I know I'm kind of putting you on the hot seat here with these, but let's just say if they don't make the finals, though, right? Which seems like a strong probability. Who knows? A lot can change. But how much more difficult will it be next year, knowing what you know about their salary cap situation and all that? Like, is there a part of you that thinks it's got to be now if they're going to get hot, go on a serious run deep in the playoffs because the cap is, too messy to bring back some of the same group and core of guys?
No, I don't think it's too messy. Frankly, I think that honestly that the playoffs will probably inform them of what direction they want to go. Like if the Timberwolves lose in the first round of the playoffs or bow out pretty sheepishly in the second round of the playoffs, I think that they'll probably explore making a major trade. But I think when you have as much depth as they have, and they have as much, I think, well-rounded and well-fitting talent between Ant and Jaden and Nikhil and Rudy and Naz and Carl on certain nights, there's just a lot to like there. And there's, again, a team that's going to be able to draw on what they did this season and hopefully improve and get better next season if they do decide to run it back the exact same way. But again, I mean, this is a team that for the most part, outside of Karl Anthony Towns, obviously with being injured, but pretty much everyone else besides him that was in the rotation last season is back this season. And they've certainly taken a huge step forward. And you'd hope that the same thing would be able to happen next season. I guess the only frustrating part for the Wolves, obviously, is that they didn't have Jaden McDaniels in the playoffs last year and they didn't have Naz Reid in the playoffs last year. So you still haven't gotten a chance to fully see what this team fully constituted would look like in a playoff series. And we'll find out. But the good news for the Timberwolves is that, if they're able to stay in that 1-2 line, maybe even the 3 line, I guess, is whether you look at teams like the Warriors, or the Lakers, or the Mavericks, all those teams have been pretty inconsistent and have showed an ability to beat anybody on any given night, an ability to lose to anybody on a given night. And we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, both those teams have, a superstar player in Steph Curry. And then you look at Dallas and Los Angeles have 2, megastar players, AD and LeBron, and then Luka and Kyrie. So it's just going to be a fascinating rest of the season in terms of trying to, some of these teams trying to figure out their identity on the fly, whether you think about Phoenix or Minnesota. You think about youth and inexperience in OKC and Minnesota and how those two groups will try to figure it out. And then trying to avoid that play-in series or that play-in tournament, right? Whether you're New Orleans or Phoenix or Dallas or Sacramento, maybe even Los Angeles, the Clippers, if they start falling down the ladder a little bit. So it'll be fun, but I think we'll learn about these teams in the final 20 games or so if people are able to stay healthy. And like you said, it's certainly a situation where any team that gets hot could make up for it, right, or could kind of grab the conference by the horns, if you will. But I still think it's pretty clearly Denver's conference. But I think the thing that makes it tough to kind of suss out beyond that right now is that all these teams have been inconsistent in the way that they're winning games from night to night for the most part. But again, it's a, I guess, testament to how talented and how tough these teams are to play on any given night, because they're still able to find a way to win games. Right. I think some people will look at this game today and think that the sky is falling for the Timberwolves, but they've had plenty of games where their offense hasn't been great and they've still found ways to win games because whether it's Ant or Nikhil or Carl or Naz or Jaden or Mike, someone has just made that one shot or 2 shots that have helped get them over the hump. And it's just going to be really, really interesting to see if that trend continues or if Ant and Carl can really kind of separate themselves from the rest of the group in terms of being able to find success in the fourth quarter and be that really dynamic offensive duo that we saw in that Memphis series, right? Those two were largely pretty good offensively and leading them down the stretch there. So it'll be
a
long last 20 games, but
I was going to
hopefully
say,
an
if it's
informative one.
anything like the first 3 quarters of the season, there'll still be plenty of ebbs and flows and ups and downs for all these teams. And again, I think it's who stays healthy and who gets hot at the end. One quick segment left. We're going to preview that Blazers game coming up tomorrow night. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's POSTCAST episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Guys, Prize Picks is without a doubt the most fun I've had playing daily fantasy because you can win up to 100 times your money this basketball season. That means with as little as 4 correct picks, you can turn your $10 into $1,000. And it's so easy to play. I can make my picks, submit an entry in less than 60 seconds. Plus, PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. And with the PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. That makes PrizePicks the only daily fantasy platform around that offers you extra injury insurance to give you that extra peace of mind. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LockedOnNBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA for a 100% bonus match up to $100. Okay, we got time for just one quick 60, 90-second preview for tomorrow night's matchup versus the Blazers. How much do you think things change in the second game of a back-to-back if you're a coach or a player as far as, the approach, I guess, heading in? Like anything you think could look different tomorrow night, I guess. Maybe some guys resting or whatnot. And then part 2, just your quick scouting report on the Blazers, how they've been playing as of late and what maybe we should expect from them.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep an eye on is just the rotation changing. We saw Nickeil Alexander-Walker now go from the 6th man, which he was for probably that second third of the season, to now being number 9. He was in that Jordan McLaughlin spot. He did not play in the first quarter. He started the second quarter. Monte Morris is now kind of been that first sub off the bench with Naz Reid. So I think, maybe they mess around with that after how Nickeil played today and hope that you can kind of continue some of that offensive rhythm tomorrow. But I would be surprised if Mike Conley didn't play. He's been a guy that's actually said he likes playing on second nights of back-to-back and feels he plays better on the second night of back-to-backs, and the stats will back that up.
Can't play worse. Can't play worse than the night.
Right, but considering the way that he took a shot from Domantas Sabonis coming around his screen on Friday night, I was surprised he wasn't on the status report coming into today. Mm-hmm. So maybe you try to buy him a day off against a Blazers team that you should have no problem beating, especially, considering that I believe that, are they playing today? I don't know if they're playing today. I think they played yesterday against Memphis, but I don't know if DeAndre Ayton's going to play. So maybe this is a situation where you try to sit Rudy Gobert, hopefully get Karl-Anthony Towns back in rhythm. Maybe you play him more at the 5 if you sit Rudy Gobert, who Chris Finch admitted was at about 85% on Friday night. So maybe that happens, but with the Blazers, we know what they are at this point. They're a team that really struggles to score the ball offensively, especially without Shadon Sharpe, especially without Ayton. Malcolm Brogdon has been hurt. Scoot Henderson has been hurt, who also has an adductor injury. And it's really just kind of been Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant just kind of vibing on the floor, not really caring whether they win or lose games. But the Blazers did have a pretty impressive 23-point comeback against Memphis yesterday. So we'll be interesting to see if they can kind of continue some of that scratch and claw mentality against a Timberwolves team that has struggled to put teams away, right? They're up 14 in this one, let it slip away on Friday against the Kings team without De'Aaron Fox. So just going to be really, I guess, interested to see what the level of heart and
how do you bounce back
the
now?
Timberwolves have after 2 games that they really should have had, and 2 games that I think if they don't end up as the number 1 seed in a few weeks at the end of the regular season, probably looking back and saying, those were right there for the taking.
Yeah, got to bounce back strong now. Got to bounce back strong. Well done tonight, as always. Wolves lose a tough one. That's 2 in a row now, 89-88 versus the Clippers. Their lead in the West shrinks once again. Back-to-back for the Wolves tomorrow. Blazers are in town. That'll be a good one. Tip-off for that one, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. As always, Huge shout out to everyone that joined us on the stream. You guys are awesome. Knowledge, passion, energy. You guys got it all. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place, right here to break it all down. Quick reminder, too, go check out all Jack's work on Twitter at JRBorman13. And make sure you check out the Minnesota basketball party each and every Wednesday. Sam Ekstrom hosting, Ron Johnson, Carol Evans, Reggie Wilson. Plus, you always got Ben Beacon ripping it up over on the Locked On Wolves podcast each and every day as well. That'll do it for us tonight. He's Jack Borman. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Until next time, signing out.